So, as promised, we are now moving on over into Learning Unit 2. Learning Unit 2. All right. And in Learning Unit 2, we then touch on chapters 3 and 4. And I'm very glad you guys have your textbooks because today you will definitely be using them. Definitely be using them. Okay. So here in Learning Unit 2, we focus on knowledge management, the foundations and solutions. In a nutshell, that's what we're really covering, okay? And then chapter 3, you can see the core stuff that's covered there. Develop a knowledge management infrastructure and architecture. Second learning outcome is discuss the importance of managing knowledge management foundations in an organization. Then finally, explain knowledge management processes using suitable organizational examples. Let's go on. Okay, so we already know that when it comes to knowledge management, it's about, doing what is necessary to maximize the knowledge resources, okay? Therefore, at a very simple level, knowledge management may be defined as doing what is needed to get the most out of knowledge resources. Knowledge resources relevant to individual and organizations' decisions, goals, and strategies of individual or organizations. Okay? Yeah, the benefit of knowledge management should exceed the cost of doing so. Okay, it's like that with all of our assets. All right, the benefit must exceed the cost thereof. Okay. Yeah, I think nothing there is really brand new. Then the first thing they really begin to touch on in this new learning unit of ours is that there is a difference between knowledge management and business intelligence. Very close relationship, but there is a difference. Okay, with knowledge management, results in the discovery of new knowledge, okay, conversion of knowledge, okay, sharing of knowledge, and application of knowledge to make decisions, okay. However, when it comes to business intelligence, all right, also has a key focus on making decisions, right? However, valuable information and knowledge by utilizing a variety of sources of data and info through the relationship between data and info. Business intelligence focuses on data access, analysis, and presentation. Okay, so here you also be using very technical methods to extract information, such as linear regression and all sorts of fancy stuff, statistics. I know you guys have experienced that in your second year as well. So it gets very, very technical on the business intelligence side, all right? And the focus is obviously just to extract information from that portion of data that we assess, all right? Whereas knowledge management is not concerned so much with data, all right? Knowledge management is concerned with activities that produce both tacit and explicit knowledge. And we spoke on what tacit and explicit knowledge is in our last lecture, all right? Then you see with BI, or business intelligence begins with data and info as inputs, okay? Data is critical to business intelligence. Imagine trying to do statistics without any data, without any pool of surveys, all right? You wouldn't be able to do so, okay? And I'm using statistics very broadly, but within statistics, there are a lot of methods and techniques, all right? Useful inputs to knowledge management. So the information you then get from your business intelligence can contribute to knowledge management. You could almost think of knowledge management as more holistic and is broader than business intelligence. BI directly results in informational knowledge by revealing previously unknown connections or patterns with data or information. Okay, then focuses directly on the discovery of explicit knowledge, very specific stuff. Okay, Then finally, technical in nature, we spoke about this, does not incorporate social mechanisms, okay? So, I mean, when you are running analysis on what do we call them? On targeted populations, okay, using some very strategic instruments or special methodologies, you're not necessarily going to be engaging with people and trying to extract knowledge from them. Whereas with knowledge management, it uses social aspects, all right, and information technology, okay? So, you know, with social aspects, there's more interaction between personnel and so forth, so forth. With BI, as soon as you know your formula, your method, what you're trying to do, you're not necessarily socializing and engaging fellow colleagues and so forth, so forth. Okay. Then here they're saying knowledge management depends mainly on two aspects. Okay. And this is what we're looking at today: knowledge management solutions and then knowledge management foundations. All right. So solutions are obviously of a specific nature. All right. Whereas foundations, you'll see it's us setting up our knowledge management program or agenda, but I think it's nicely explained through the image that we'll see 2 slides down. Okay, knowledge management solutions refers to the way in which specific aspects of knowledge management can be accomplished. Okay, and what are they talking about? Remember, solutions is how do we solve a problem, right? Or it's addressing a specific problem. Here, we're talking about the discovery, capturing, sharing, and application of knowledge. So when we're looking at solutions, we're basically saying, how do we solve for discovering knowledge? How do we solve for the capturing of knowledge? How do we solve for sharing and application of the knowledge? You see what I'm saying? Right? So that is what we're talking about with solutions. And that's why we say it's more specific in nature as opposed to broader. And you'll see why they say knowledge foundations is broader and more long-term. Okay? And then obviously your solutions, as you'll see on the image as well, it involves your processes and systems. So the processes and systems to basically solve for the solutions, all right? Or provide us with solutions to things like the discovery and so forth. Okay, so knowledge management foundations, what are they saying there? What are they saying there? So then they say broad organizational aspects that support knowledge management in the short and long term include knowledge infrastructure and knowledge management mechanisms and technology. Okay, right. But let's go on. Let's go on. So here you can see it would actually be even better for me to quickly go to this slide. Let's actually reverse it. Okay. Let's look at the overview before we start looking at some more defining aspects. Okay, so this is what I was talking about earlier. You've got your knowledge management solutions right at the top. But before we can get to solutions, to concerns, problems that arise in our search for knowledge, we first need to go to the foundation. Okay, and this is something that management needs to set up within the organization. So we have the knowledge management mechanisms, which are very closely linked to knowledge management technologies. Then we have the knowledge management infrastructure, which is what we're going to be focusing on today, knowledge management infrastructure, okay? Then all those things that you have in your bottom half of that pyramid, okay, they speak to your knowledge management foundation, which then aid you in putting together systems, all right, and processes, which then give you your solutions, your knowledge management solutions. Okay. So that is an overview of your knowledge management solutions and foundation. Okay, now here you get a little bit more of a breakdown of the different aspects that we had on the previous slide. So infrastructure, what are we talking about there? Reflects to the long-term foundation for knowledge management. Includes 5 major components. That's what we're going to be focusing on today. The 5 major components. Okay. So you've got knowledge management mechanisms, and this is organizational or structural means used to promote knowledge management. The infrastructure that you then have in the company in relation to knowledge management is what's going to either propel this thing, right, forward through culture and things of that nature, all right? Here it says involves organizational arrangement or social and structural means to facilitate knowledge management, okay? Mechanisms to facilitate knowledge management. Technology, we actually really spoke about technology. I think, not in our previous, I think the one before, actually, but throughout we have been talking about technology. So there isn't really much that's brand new, okay? But yeah, we still will be focusing on it. And then processes, broad processes that help to discover, capture, sharing, and so forth, okay? We need to figure out how are we going to go about sharing our knowledge management. Then knowledge management systems, all right? Integration of technology mechanisms to support the knowledge management process, okay? And then like I said, today we'll be focusing on the infrastructure, okay? And what does our infrastructure entail? It entails 5 major components, all right? First, I did mention this earlier. First one is organizational culture, all right? Then organizational structure, and then your technology infrastructure, and then common knowledge, and then your physical environment. So before I even go any further, what we're going to do today is we're going to split into groups of 5. Groups of 5. And then we are going to, each group is going to cover one of those aspects. And I'll show you exactly what I want you to cover in relation to those aspects. Okay? I want you, within your group, to define that aspect. After defining it, all right, and this is you're going to get from your textbooks, and I'll share my textbook if there's a group that doesn't have, but I saw a lot of you went and collected. I know some of you have it soft copy, which is perfectly fine. So I want you to define that aspect. I want you to summarize whatever information or key pointers that you get from the aspect that you're reviewing. And then I also want you to speak about the attributes, things that enable that particular aspect within an organization. And then if you have examples, you can also just throw those in. And that is going to be our lecture for the day. So, how many are we? 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. So we are groups of 4. We won't have 5 then. We only have 4 groups. But we have 5 things to define.
2 groups of 6.
You're saying groups of 6?
Groups of 4. 3, 5, 12.
Then how are we splitting this?
4, 8, 12. One group does 2.
One group does 2. Okay. And then what? I must do the last one. Physical environment. Okay. I am open to negotiation. All right. So let's do it that way then. We said 2 groups of 6, huh? So 6 over there. If you can come this side. 6 over here. And then within your groups, you can also split if you want to. It's up to you. I'll leave that to you guys. But you know what is needed. Let me zoom out a little bit. So I will deal with physical environment. You guys will deal with the other 4. So before we go on, so what we're going to do is your group, you'll do number 1 and 4. So organizational culture and common knowledge. And then your group, if you'll do organizational structure and organizational technology infrastructure. Right. I'll leave this on the screen just as a reference point.